Number 8. Katie Bellflower. 17-year-old Jenna Nanetti and 20-year-old Mike Simons got married in 2002, just months after meeting. They lived together at Jenna's grandmother's home in San Joaquin County, California, with plans to save up for their own place. However, the marriage fell apart within months and the pair eventually separated. Mike then moved in with Jenna's former classmate, Katie Bellflower, who he'd been having an affair with. Jenna vanished later that year. After going out one night, she left her grandmother a voicemail saying that someone had attacked her and she was in danger. She never came home, and her car was found engulfed in flames outside a bar. A fisherman discovered Jenna's body in a remote area with 2 gunshot wounds to the chest. But investigators had little to go on, and the case stalled until the following year, when a local deputy saw Katie Bellflower and her friend Jeff Hamilton crouched over a young woman outside in the middle of the night. Katie and Jeff were wearing latex gloves and were huddled around their friend, Aspen Loom's head. The pair claimed they were just worried that Loom was going to vomit on them and that they wanted to keep their hands clean. Aspen initially went along with the story, but later told law enforcement that Katie and Jeff were trying to suffocate her to death when the deputy pulled up. She also said that after their run-in with the deputy, Katie profusely apologized for trying to kill her and begged her not to report it, which was actually the first thing she did as soon as she got away from her attackers. During questioning, Jeff admitted that Katie had asked for his help killing Aspen, whom she'd come to see as a growing threat to her relationship with Mike. Jeff also implicated himself, Katie, and Mike in Jenna's death, telling deputies that Mike lured her over to his house to talk. Katie struck her with a 2x4 from behind, and Mike pretended to be angry at her for it. He comforted Jenna, then drove her to a remote area where Katie and Jeff were waiting to finish the job. The 3 suspects were charged with murder. Katie took a plea deal and was sentenced to 25 years to life. Jeff pleaded guilty in exchange for a 15-year sentence, and Mike was sentenced to life plus 25 years. Katie gave birth to his baby in prison a few months later, and thankfully the child was adopted by a family who could raise the child normally. Number 7. Sarah Parker. Deputies in Calcasieu Parish, Louisiana, received an unusual tip in 2018 from a caller who claimed that a woman was driving around with a dead body in her trunk. The suspect in question was 22-year-old Sarah Parker, who was dating a married Army soldier named Logan Kyle. They were both in the car when law enforcement pulled them over, along with Parker's 2 young children in the back seats. Inside the trunk was the body of Kyle's pregnant wife, Shalana. Their marriage had been rocky for quite some time, and they'd even separated at one point, which was when Kyle met Parker. But they'd recently decided to try making their marriage work, and as far as Shalana knew, Kyle had ended his relationship with Parker. Authorities believed that Kyle killed Shalana and that he and Parker were looking for somewhere to dispose of the victim's body. Sources close to the case told the Daily Mail that Kyle was unhappy with Shalana because he liked to cross-dress and she disapproved of it. She even reportedly threatened to tell her husband's commanders about her husband's secret, which allegedly ran deeper than being just a hobby. According to one source, Kyle was considering getting gender reassignment surgery once he left the military. Shalana refused to accept this part of her husband's life, but Parker apparently accepted him for who he was. Kyle was convicted of murder and received a life sentence. Parker was charged with obstruction of justice, failing to report a homicide, and 2 counts of contributing to the delinquency of a minor. The outcome of her case is unclear, but if she was convicted of all the charges brought against her, she likely faced up to 40 years of hard labor in the Louisiana state prison system. Number 6. Anne Lundquist. They say that hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and Cynthia Shackelford certainly lived up to the statement after a private investigator confirmed in 2005 that her husband Alan was cheating on her. After giving up her teaching career to be a stay-at-home mom decades earlier, Cynthia depended on her husband to be a good family man, but after they separated, he failed to pay court-ordered alimony. Left to start over on her own, Cynthia sold the family's 5-bedroom house and moved into an apartment before landing herself a retail job. But it wasn't just about money. Cynthia was devastated over the destruction of her 33-year marriage, and she truly felt like someone had unfairly taken something from her. She blamed both Alan and his mistress for the affair, but wanted to set an example that would deter women from pursuing married men. Cynthia filed a lawsuit against Alan's mistress, Anne Lundquist, for alienation of affection, which allows spouses to sue third parties for interfering with their marriages. North Carolina is just one of 7 states that recognize alienation of affection claims, and it sees about 200 cases per year, according to ABC News. Most states have gotten rid of the law, which is widely considered to be outdated, and North Carolina lawmakers have thought about abolishing it altogether. But it remains on the books thanks to conservative legislators who feel like voting down the statute would condone adultery. The court ruled in Cynthia's favor in the end, and she was rewarded with a whopping $9 million, money that Lundquist claimed she didn't have. In a press interview shortly after the ruling, she said that she planned to appeal the case. It's unclear where the matter currently stands, but Cynthia definitely got her point across, and hopefully she moved on to better things after the case was settled. Number 5. Simone Deutsch. In 2016, a British woman named Simone Deutsch met a married hedge fund boss on a website that caters specifically to people looking for an affair. The man made it abundantly clear that he had no plans to leave his wife, and Deutsch said she was okay with that. The two met up a handful of times for casual encounters at his home and office, and took trips to Paris and Switzerland together. But Deutsch wanted a bigger commitment than her secret lover was willing to give, despite him telling her that it could never be serious. After realizing that she expected him to leave his wife, the businessman ended the affair and cut all ties with Deutsch. The scorned mistress subsequently launched a public smear campaign against the man and threatened to expose the affair. She also claimed that she'd been pregnant with his baby, but that she miscarried after he dumped her. Instead of caving to Deutsch's demands, the victim came clean to his wife, revealing the truth on his own terms and taking away his former girlfriend's power to ruin the marriage by ratting him out. For 2 years, Deutsch stalked and harassed the family on social media and over the phone. She mocked the couple's marriage, called the wife ugly and trashy, and cut her down in almost every way imaginable. The man's wife was severely traumatized to the point where she stopped socializing. She also grew to be terrified of going on the internet and worried constantly about how the situation was affecting her children. Deutsch's behavior eventually caught up with her, though, and in 2018 she was charged with 2 counts of stalking. Her lawyer, Peter Caldwell, argued in court that Deutsch got carried away in her fantasies about where the relationship could go after being swept off her feet by her lover. Insisting that the relationship was more than a fling, Caldwell described the victim as cruel for the way he shot down Deutsch's girlish notions of romance. The judge was unmoved by the lawyer's narrative and described Deutsch as calculating and remorseless. He acknowledged that she mistook the relationship for being more serious than it was, but that her actions were so extreme that he couldn't consider it as a mitigating factor. As a result, Deutsch received a suspended prison sentence and was required to attend rehab. Number 4. Alexis Williams. Alexis Williams was extremely upset when her married girlfriend, Donyavia Lagway, broke up with her in 2021 and went back to her husband. Just weeks later, Lagway, her husband Gregory Kahi, and the couple's daughter were found shot to death inside their Houston, Texas home. Another victim was severely injured but survived by playing dead, while another was unharmed. Lagway was also pregnant at the time of the shooting. Phone records yielded evidence that Williams had recruited her childhood friend, 28-year-old Xavier Davis, to massacre the family. She allegedly promised Davis a large sum of money for the favor and claimed that the cash was stashed inside the victim's apartment. Williams watched on FaceTime while Davis carried out the gruesome triple homicide. Some of the details about what went on are so horrifying that they're better left unmentioned, and the fact that Williams wanted to see the crimes happen makes the case even more disturbing. Then, after masterminding the brutal murders, Williams had the nerve to show up at the family's funeral. Evidence further revealed that Davis allegedly carjacked a vehicle before heading over to the family's apartment. Both he and Williams were charged with 2 counts of capital murder, 1 count of capital murder of a victim younger than 10, and 1 count of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. They were taken to jail and are being held without bond as their cases proceed through the court system. Prosecutors plan to seek the death penalty against Davis, but haven't announced their decision on whether they'll pursue capital punishment in Williams' case. Her next court date is set for February 2023, so we'll have to wait and see how everything plays out in the coming months. Number 3. Daria Daya. After moving to Jefferson City, Missouri on a student visa during the early 2000s, Ukrainian national Daria Daya began an affair with a married lawyer named James Douglas Barding. To avoid having to leave the country when her visa expired, she married a man named Tim Dunville in 2005, but she apparently never lived with him. In fact, Daya lived just around the block from Barding, and the affair dragged on for years. Dunville agreed to the scam with the understanding that he could divorce Daya after she had been in the United States long enough to legally stay without being married. In the meantime, Daya had 2 children with Barding, but put Dunville down as the father on their birth certificates. During an immigration hearing in 2010, she claimed that Dunville was the father of her children and that the 2 of them shared a home together. However, authorities became suspicious and ordered a DNA test on the kids, which proved that Barding was their real father and that Daya had been lying for years about it. Barding and Daya both pleaded guilty to conspiring to defraud the United States by enticing a U.S. citizen to marry a foreign national. Daya was sentenced to 3 years of probation and was fined $1,000. She ended up moving to Arizona, and it appears as though the couple are no longer together. Barding received a 1-month prison sentence followed by a year of supervised release. He was also hit with a $3,000 fine and obtained full custody of the children. Number 2. Amanda Lee Love. 44-year-old Velvet Burns was found stabbed to death in her Jacksonville, Florida home in 2019. Her husband Jerry was working out of town at the time, but police soon discovered that he had a mistress named Amanda Lee Love and that she was in the area when Velvet was murdered. During the investigation, they found evidence that Jerry offered Amanda $5,000 to arrange for someone to kill his wife and to drive them to the scene. He told her to make it look like a burglary and promised to give her an additional payout after cashing in on Velvet's life insurance policy. Detectives believed that others were involved and that Jerry and Amanda may not have been responsible for stabbing Velvet to death, but they charged the pair with murder since they were allegedly the ones who orchestrated the crime. A few weeks later, investigators arrested the hitman, 37-year-old Stephen Shelton Hand, after a witness claimed they saw him committing the crime and frantically destroying evidence afterward. In the end, Hand pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life behind bars, but Amanda and Jerry's cases appear to be ongoing. Number 1. Kaylee Reed. British charity worker Kaylee Reed was crushed when she lost a job she really enjoyed in 2016, and she suspected her boss Robert Page of having something to do with it. The two had been involved in a steamy affair, which allegedly continued after Page got married. After being fired, Reed posted a nude photo of her former boss on his wife's Facebook page and was arrested for it. Reed's lawyer described how Page became a shoulder for the young woman to cry on when she split from a previous boyfriend. The two reportedly continued to talk and fooled around on at least one occasion after Page and his wife exchanged their vows. The defense argued that Reed felt taken advantage of and humiliated, and that she posted the photo because she was trying to be heard. In her own words, she said she wanted to prove the affair to Page's wife. She pleaded guilty to the revenge porn offense, which could have landed her in prison for 2 years and required her to pay restitution. However, the judge handed down a 6-month conditional discharge and made no orders to compensate the victim, citing Page's provocative behavior as a mitigating factor. If your sibling was cheating on their partner and asked you to lie and cover for them, would you do it? If not, would you tell their partner about the infidelity or stay quiet to avoid the drama? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.